All right, we are going to call this Tuesday, March 17th City Council meeting to order. If the clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Here.
Mayor Amato.
Here.
Councilmember Treen.
He let me know that he is going to be a few minutes late. He's got a student obligation.
Thank you. Councilmember Boyer.
Here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Treen.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. And I will lead us in the pledge. Councilmember Lamb, if you could please read the land acknowledgement statement.
We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Thank you very much. And do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Up next, we have public comment, and the sheet is on its way to me now. When you come up for public comment, if you could please state your name and your city of residence. I'll call the first three people up and then continue on, and you can feel free to line up behind the speaker a few feet back if you would like. Up first, we have Wendy Weicker, Karthik Seetherman, and Celia Wu.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Amato, council members, and staff. I'm Wendy Weicker, Municipal Services Manager for Republic Services in Bellevue. For several decades, our team has proudly and effectively served the Sammamish community. I'm here tonight to respectfully request that Council consider a direct contract negotiation with Republic Services in the next few months, rather than pursue a timely and expensive RFP process. The current waste hauling market in general is experiencing unprecedented volatility. Locally, we have several state laws like the Organics Management Law and Recycling Reform Act that are bringing operational and cost uncertainty to our customers. Further, the King County disposal system is facing significant capital improvement needs, as well as a long-term disposal decision that will impact operations and costs when our regional landfill reaches capacity. While you can't control those parts of the garbage rates your constituents pay, you can control what they pay for collection services on that side of their bills. Regarding customer bills, several nearby cities have recently conducted collections RFPs that have seen rate increases between 20 and 40% due to rising fuel, labor, equipment costs, and those risky market conditions I just mentioned. Through direct negotiations, my leadership team is committed to working collaboratively with your team to mitigate these economic factors and deliver the most cost-effective, competitive rates possible while keeping our excellent operations, customer service, and community outreach programs going in the city of Sammamish. Our drivers already know your unique neighborhoods and challenging topography. We've built relationships with your residents and business owners and have the routing expertise and infrastructure in place to ensure reliable service. We support city events with in-kind service, and our outreach team does tabling and speaking at community gatherings like farmers markets, Earth Day events, and Rotary Club meetings. We've adopted a street in Sammamish and do other litter walks that our team organizes several times a year. In addition to being a reliable service provider and dedicated community partner in waste reduction outreach work, Republic Services is also committing to supporting Sammamish's climate action plan and sustainability goals. With the certainty of a renewed contract, together we can invest in carbon-reducing fleet technology and advanced zero-waste programs and pilot technology that will further benefit this innovation and your community. So let me end where I began. Thank you for our several decades of partnership. Republic Services would appreciate the opportunity to participate in a transparent, data-driven discussion with your team before you commit the city to a lengthy, expensive RFP process. A negotiation in the next few months would allow us to focus on what matters most, providing excellent service at the best possible value for Sammamish residents. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Up next, we have Karthik, then Celia, then John Burdakin.
Hello. Respected Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. Hopefully that was respectful enough to not be kicked out of this council. So I'm here to talk about 3 topics, which are sort of interrelated. My first topic is council priorities. Along with other residents, I'm dismayed that the council found it necessary to prioritize discussion on decorum in council meetings last session. How many council meetings in the last 2 years have been disrupted by unruly Sammamish residents? Why is this the topmost thing in your agenda to discuss when residents have cited higher property taxes, increase in utility prices, which we just heard right now, 20 to 40%, utility taxes, lack of safe sidewalks, city code being arbitrarily implemented, to name a few? I heard that we are still running based on the old work schedule from the previous council. If that is true, I exhort this council to pull up your sleeves, socks, whatever it is, and get the council back to work on things that really matter to the residents. Second topic would be timely decisioning. I'm also dismayed that we would be discussing the $30,000 survey again in this session. How come we are not able to take a decision quickly on such matters? Like, the council has coffee with council. 4 of you just got elected 5 months ago when you walked the streets and you met with like almost 10,000 residents. Like, you have, office hours, the mayor has the office hours. Beyond this, what else do we need to get the resident inputs, right? Council member Amy Lamb found $60,000 on some unneeded software. Put these 30,000 and 60,000 in together, you can open up the baseball fields for our little leaguers. I would love to see a resolution on that in this council. Third, on the topic of decorum, I am just stupefied that this is the highest thing that we need to prioritize to discuss here, right? So was this council disrupted when, hundreds of residents from Inglewood came and spoke to you around, the issues they had? Was this council disrupted when hundreds of residents came to you and spoke about 4,000 homes in 228th? What prompted us to spend an hour discussing decorum in this council? Why are we building a wall around the council? Democracy is messy, not me. Barack Obama said that. Please learn to deal with democracy. Let democracy not die in the city hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Celia Wu, then John, and then Mark Stendal.
Can I move this? Celia Wu, City of Sammamish. Good evening, council members. I am a community journalist covering Sammamish and a professor at the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication at Washington State University. I am here about a matter of factual accuracy. In July 2025, Councilmember Stewart stated publicly in a large Sammamish Facebook group that, quote, "The judge found that you violated the citizens' First Amendment rights." She stated that, quote, "A qualified judge reviewed all of the evidence and ruled that you were in the wrong." These statements concern Kimsey versus City of Sammamish in the United States District Court for the Western District of Washington. The court's written order contains no such finding. The court did not find that I violated anyone's First Amendment rights. For a journalist and a journalism educator, being publicly accused of violating constitutional rights is a serious professional harm. On February 12th, I sent Councilmember Stewart a formal written demand for retraction with a copy to the city attorney. Councilmember Stewart has not responded. The city attorney responded not to address whether the statement is accurate, but to call my letter a, quote, so-called demand. She dismissed the matter. So here's what I'm asking tonight. The city retains an ethics officer, Jeremy Cullenber, who actually served as my defense counsel in this very case. Mr. Cullenber has direct firsthand knowledge of this case and my innocence. I am asking this council to direct the ethics officer to issue a written statement confirming 2 facts. 1, that the court's order does not contain a finding that I violated any person's First Amendment rights. And 2nd, that Councilmember Stewart's public characterization of the ruling was inaccurate. I ask that the statement be directed to Councilmember Stewart, copied to the full council, and entered into the public record. When an elected official invokes a federal court to
accuse a constituent of violating constitutional rights, and that accusation does not reflect the court's actual findings, the constituent is entitled to a correction. When a city attorney, who is also a public servant, dismisses a constituent's demand to correct the record, that erodes faith in how our local government works. Councilmember Stewart moved at the March 10th special meeting to prohibit slanderous comments during public comment. I would ask that she apply that same standard to her own conduct on social media. The full written version of this comment has been submitted for the record and to your emails. I ask that you please take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is John, followed by Mark, and then Heather Murphy-Raines.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Burdikin. I live in the Beaver Lake watershed. I've been in Sammamish as a resident for 16 years. For the past 10 years, I've also sat on the Beaver Lake Management District Advisory Board. My comment tonight is to express strong support for the resolution of intent to form the Beaver Lake Management District watershed. The Beaver Lake Management District supports reliable and routine water quality monitoring for invasive species, treatment to the Beaver Lake. These efforts directly lead to a high quality of recreation around the lake, which benefits the entire Sammamish community. Having a lake management district means that people who live on the lake and around the lake have a direct voice on how it is protected and how resources are managed. As an advisory board member, I strongly support and recommend the City Council approve another 10-year term for the Beaver Lake Management District. Thank you for your time, and I urge the Council to approve the resolution of intent before you tonight.
Thank you for your comments. Up next is Mark, followed by Heather, followed by Bo Raines.
Good evening, council members. My name's Mark Stendel. I serve on the board of the Beaver Lake Management District. I'm also president of the Beaver Lake Community Club. Winter 70 years ago, snow is coming down, 6 inches drop around Beaver Lake. A small group of neighbors go through near blizzard conditions to gather at Andy's Resort on the north end of Beaver Lake. That night, they formed the Beaver Lake Community Club. It was a historic night. A few decades later, the 1990s, many of the same people that lived around Beaver Lake, came together again and said, hey, let's tax ourselves, shall we? And form the Beaver Lake Management District, which has been in effect for the last 30 years. Because they believe that coming together would protect and improve the place that they loved. And that's why I'm here tonight, to express my strong support for the resolution of intent to renew Beaver Lake Management District. We've renewed this district 3 times over the past 30 years because it works. It protects the water quality, it addresses any invasive species, and it ensures responsible and ongoing stewardship of our lake. I have been fortunate to be part of this community over the last 30 years. I've seen what happens when people come together to care for a place and for each other. We don't just inherit places like Beaver Lake, we are entrusted with them. Entrusted to protect them, entrusted to care for them, entrusted to pass them on better than the way we found them. Tonight is our opportunity to do the same. I respectfully ask you to support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Heather, then Bo, and then John Solers.
Oops. Okay. Heather Murphy-Raines, 20-year resident. Let's start with the proposed updates to public commentary and decorum. I urge the council to ensure any rules remain strictly viewpoint neutral and consistent with well-established First Amendment and case law precedent. Courts are clear. Speech cannot be restricted simply because it is critical, uncomfortable, or offensive. Limitations must be tied to actual disruption, not content or tone. Proposals to prohibit personal attacks, finger snapping, or other disruptive or non-disruptive gestures raise serious constitutional concerns and expose the city to litigation. Public meetings where we can directly address elected officials should protect free speech until it actually disrupts the meeting. I'm surprised our city attorney has not provided legal counsel actively during meetings on this topic. On the budget, Sammamish faces a projected deficit while residents absorb a 6% utility tax, along with rising garbage, water, PSC, property tax, gasoline, and inflation. These taxes are regressive and disproportionately impact seniors and fixed income households. Simultaneously, we're considering a $30K unnecessary survey that previously yielded 300 responses. Over $200K for city hall flooring for a limited issue that could be repaired or left as it is with mats. And $400K for lighting upgrades. We were told cuts were made, yet it raises the question of how much waste still remains. Please practice fiscal restraint. On the YMCA, the council should examine whether the services match what residents funded in the bond and if YMCA profits are being funneled out of Sammamish. Eliminated towel service anyone? Limited access to community rooms with ongoing confusion between city and YMCA staff? I personally have tried to reserve a room, often empty, and was passed back and forth without resolution. Is access really limited to nonprofits? If so, does that contradict the community center designation? We should maximize access to public meeting spaces following models like KC Libraries, as well as expand use of fire station meeting rooms. Residents should be able to reserve spaces once a month, regardless of 501c status, topic, or focus. And then there's to the YMCA pool. Access is problematic. One pool routinely closes in the afternoon, while the other is often empty. Meanwhile, high school swim teams lack access and train outdoors in the winter. Not what residents like me voted for as a community-funded facility. Finally, residents report difficulty accessing city staff in person post-COVID. There are many reports of residents unable to meet staff on site. With significant development rezoning concerns, why is there a sign in City Hall right now indicating drop-in permit services limited to a few hours, a few days a week? The city manager and his team should return daily in-office presence. Being physically present strengthens connection to the community and allows staff to directly experience traffic, development, and tree loss, leading to more informed decisions. Maybe we'll get that new traffic study then. As staff contracts are considered, prioritize and incentivize staff who live in Sammamish or are willing to relocate. Residents deserve accessible in-person public service. Thank you.
Thank you. Bo, and then John.
Evening, council members. I'm Bo Rains, longtime Sammamish resident. I have a question tonight about the utility tax. We're almost a quarter into the year. How are the tax revenues trending to projections? What are you projecting by month? We're 2 billing periods into the year, and I've paid $50 one month and $48 in the other month. That comes out to a $600 annual projection. And this doesn't include mobile phone or internet. They'll probably just recoup that as an administrative fee later. And I'm not average. I have a larger than the average 2,800 square foot house in Sammamish, but we keep it at 65 degrees during the wintertime. We don't have air conditioning. We don't have cable TV. That's why I wear a sweatshirt. Right, so with my sample size of 1, the average household in Sammamish is going to pay more than $600 a month, or $600, annually. And at 22,000 houses at $600 a month or a year, that generates $13 million in tax revenues in the first year. We already know that there are rate hikes coming. We heard about the risk of the trash pickup, right? Property taxes are raising. And we've had previous testimony that says expect an 8% annual increase in water costs. Following the rule of 72, water rates double in 9 years. So Councilmember Lamb has stated several times on social media that the new council majority can just repeal it. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right? That's what got us into this mess. Prior council kept spending because they could. Prior council chose 6% because that was the highest they could put in place without a vote of the people. But you can track its progress and against projections and adjust the utility tax to what you need. You can look closely at the budget and find areas to trim. Councilmember Lamb spearheaded this with the Adobe contract that Karthik mentioned before. Prior speakers mentioned other areas of, do we really need to spend that much money? And I'd suggest taking a look at the $150,000 small tools budget line that the IT department has. That's far larger than the Parks Department small tools budget. That's the question. How is the utility tax revenue trending to your projections? My email's on the sign-up form. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have John.
So my name is John Sollers. I've been here since 1988, and this is the first time I've ever done something like this. I'm a retired senior engineer at the Boeing Company, so I know numbers pretty well. I'm looking at my bills, Puget Sound Energy and Republic and stuff like that, and it's been mentioned that the utility tax is 6%. Now, why does my bill say on PSC that it's 6.69, and on my garbage bill it says 6.65? So I know that you don't answer the question here because I've heard other people ask questions. So do you send me an email with that explanation? How does that work?
We'll be getting some budget presentations here in the coming weeks, and I'm sure that question will be answered, and the city manager has heard it, so that's something we can
Fantastic, because 6.65 and 6.69 is not 6%. You guys have a nice day. I might be moving because taxes are down here.
Thank you.
Oh, you bet. Thank you.
Do we have anybody registered online for public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Anyone else in the room who would like to give public comment, please make your way up to the front and then get behind the first speaker who gets there.
Good evening, City Council. Paul Stickney, Sammamish. To comment today on the survey coming up, and not as to whether, I don't think it should be done as it is, but I think some other tool to do research that gets really good representation, information that is non-biased is something we should do. But the comment I'm going to make is something I caught inadvertently. In the 2024 survey, there was a question that was reported in the findings of the survey. And that question, number 15, said, please indicate to what degree you would support or oppose the city focusing on diverse and affordable housing options in Sammamish. And when the public answered that question, roughly 61% said they strongly support or somewhat support that, and roughly 39% said they did not. But what I caught was in the presentation that was shown at your council meeting by staff on February 17th, that question didn't say what I just said. That question, as it was proposed and passed by council for added questions back in, I don't have this date, let me look here. It was on February 20th of 2024. That question 15 said something else. It said, please indicate to what degree would you support or oppose the creation of diverse and affordable housing options in Sammamish. Focusing on and the creation of are two different things. The word city was in the part about focusing on. the city was not in the part about creation. So the question wasn't stating in 24 that the city had to create it. It was asking residents if more diverse and affordable housing, and I'm inserting market rate and affordable. The question didn't say that. But it was asking residents how they felt about that. That's one thing I think we really need to know, because I've spent a lot of time talking about internal needs, and without going down that path for a whole lot of information, I'll just say that the 2,000 affordable housing target that's in the comp plan now, and I've been discussing adding 5,000 market rate in housing types we don't have. Those combined, if they were created over 20 years, would be about 1/3 of the traffic that we've added in the city for the past 25 years. So I'm just hoping to get information to help potentially guide for internal housing needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Upinder Hinsa, 215 East Lake Sammamish Parkway Southeast. Have been building and investing a lot in this city. Two concerns I have, as was mentioned, others. One is the taxes going up. My property taxes just last week are up to $77,198. Very soon I'll have to take at least a third job to try to support those. So I know it's King County, but a lot of it is going all over, so we'll need to figure out a way. Maybe California, Jarvis-Gantt tax, that it doesn't go more than 1.5% or 2%. So that's something that we are raising, that we live in Sammamish. I live on the lake, I understand, but not for very long. My wife is already considering looking somewhere else. Number two, staffing concerns. We have had some very good staff, but we have lost 5 people in the building department that I know of, with Avril Beatty just moving March 11th, and few others have moved on. Are there any plans for you to immediately restaff? Because all it means is, I know it's difficult to hire people, but what that means is more delays, and more delays. And on my lot 8, I've been only waiting about 4 years. David Pyle knows that. Avril knew that. Many of you have heard me come up here. So we need to figure out a way to help get that moving faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please come forward. If you do have public comment, please get in line behind our next speaker here.
Hello, my name is Carrie Bosworth, Sammamish resident, 8 years. I have a solution to the social media problem. I recommend getting off of it. I used to love social media, friends, family, home improvement, until I moved to Sammamish. Nothing good happens there in Sammamish Facebook groups. So I think everyone should just get off of it. As far as decorum, I appreciate a level-headed guidance on decorum. I've been coming to city meetings, and the hand waving, whatever, I do see it out of the corner of my eye, and sometimes it's a little distracting. Last week, it's important to be respectful when we're here so that we can all pay attention, so you can pay attention, so we can pay attention. I had to leave the meeting early last week because there was disruption in the audience. I just couldn't pay attention anymore. So one day it's hand wavings, the next people are doing other things or bringing other people to the meetings that are very disruptive. So I think decorum is important. Don't want to squash anyone's First Amendment rights, but we're here to watch you do this work, so thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the audience like to give public comment? Okay. Do we have anybody pre-registered online for public comment?
No pre-registered comments, Mayor. There are none. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And we have a consent calendar next. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion? We require pre-registered. Yep. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second?
And seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And we have our discussion on the YMCA annual report. So we'll give staff just a moment to get all set up here.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Mr. City Manager. For the record, I'm Anjali Meyer, Director of Parks and Recreation. Your next two presenters are from the YMCA of Greater Seattle. Kelly Martin is the branch executive of our Sammamish Community and Aquatic Center, and with her is Andy Sharp, Associate Vice President of Branch Operations. The city has a partnership with the YMCA to operate and maintain our community and aquatic center. And as part of that agreement, the YMCA provides the city with an annual report, which is included in your agenda packets. Kelly will cover some of that information in her presentation tonight. With that introduction, I will turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you, Anjali. Good evening, City Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Kelly Martin, and I'm the branch exec at the Sammamish Community Y. We are grateful for the continued partnership that allows the Sammamish Y to serve as a place where neighbors connect, families grow, and our community thrives. 2024 was an amazing foundation for our branch as we completed the tile project, which was a huge endeavor, both from the city and from the Y. 2025 was a very exciting year for us of growth, learning, and deeper connection to the Sammamish community, and I'm excited to share our findings. Sorry, technical difficulties. First off, I'd just like to thank our advisory board, who is made up of 12 board members. They are really the foundation of the work we do in the community, led by our board chair, Zach Griffin. The work that we do wouldn't be possible without them. And I most definitely need to thank the 190 staff that we have employed at the Sammamish Y. During our peak time, which is summer, we're somewhere between 250 to 260 staff. That includes membership, lifeguards, swim instructors, sports coaches, Kids Zone and Adventure Zone staff, as well as our leadership staff and building maintenance. "2025 was really about being a vibrant hub for our community. We had over 640,000 visits to our branch. That is a lot of humans walking through that building. We were able to host over 90 Group X classes a week. That's almost 90,000 people. 30,000 kiddos running through our Adventure Zone and Kids Zone, having a safe place where they could be with their families. And we really leaned into family time, whether it was Parents' Night Out, Family Night, which is a free program for our members, enrichment classes, and other things that we did for our kiddos. And then, of course, leaning into our mission of over 6,000 kids having the opportunity to learn how to swim. Some other highlights, as long as the facility goes. We invested over $200,000 into the facility improvements, refreshing spaces and updating equipment to ensure the Y remains welcoming and accessible for our members and community. This was also my first whole year at the Y and Sammamish. I've been with the Y for 10 years, really giving me the opportunity to dive into the community and learn more about the needs of our neighbors. One of our biggest celebrations this year was our Fall Festival. This is an open event for both members and community. It doesn't matter where you live, where you're from. You can come celebrate the fall with us, and we had over 4,000 participants. If you happened to walk through that night, it was really, really magical. We continue to strengthen partnerships with organizations like the Rotary, Sammamish Friends, and the Sammamish Chamber, helping bring important community events to the Y. We also hosted the Plateau College Fair for the high schools on the plateau with over 50 colleges and universities, and our first ever disaster preparedness event, which really stemmed from the bomb cyclone. This was all put on by the board, local community partnerships coming where anyone in the community could come learn how to be safe. The Y is more than just a swim and gym. The Y's mission is to ensure everyone in our community has the opportunity to thrive. In 2025, we provided over $200,000 in scholarships, whether it's membership or program-based, ensuring everyone has access to programs, aquatics, no matter what their financial barriers may be. We also served over 1,100 active older adults, building connection and movement through pickleball on Saturday mornings for our 55 and over, which is a partnership with Sammamish Friends. This is a free community program. We launched programs that support health and well-being, including our Pedaling for Parkinson's program, serving individuals and their care partners. This is a medically based program where people who experience Parkinson's cycle. It doesn't cure Parkinson's, but it helps reduce the symptoms, and it's also a great community connector for them. We hope to launch more programs like this in 2026, including our Live Strong program, which is for cancer survivors. Benefits for the Sammamish residents are very important. Here are some of the highlights on the slide. What I'd really like to point out is our weekly community swim, where we offer 3 opportunities for recreational swim for families. These are completely full every Sunday, serving more than 6,000 Sammamish residents. I spoke of the community pickleball on Saturday mornings. On Friday, every Friday afternoon, we offer pickleball to the community, no matter what your age is. And of course, we have major events like Fall Festival, Healthy Kids Day, Winter Wonderland, and as well as providing meeting spaces for our Sammamish nonprofits. Really, the Y is a place for all. We thrive to be a community hub. I really believe that this is what we accomplished in 2025. Thank you again for your support and your partnership. The Y in Sammamish would not be possible without the city of Sammamish and all of your support. Thank you, and we're here for questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Council, do we have any questions? I don't see any questions. I do have one question. I do have Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Kelly, for the presentation. I just wanted to highlight something that you had touched on, which was the emergency management fair that was hosted, which was, I attended it that day. It was a really great event. And I think there is plans to continue to host that this coming year.
It is September 26th.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like it needs to be publicized more. I think it was something that I know our residents have been looking for. I think if we could do a collaboration with the city, if maybe we can get it into the newsletter, get the word out there, maybe even a banner across 228. I don't know how we do that, but so that we can get the word out to the community, because I know this is something we've all been asking for. So, and thank you for hosting that. And then just as a little personal story, my son Kian volunteers at the Y very regularly, and ran into an issue the other day where he lost his phone, which for somebody with autism, it's an integral part of his life. I want to just commend the Y staff, rallied around him to locate the phone and make sure he was supported, and got in touch with me, and we tracked the phone down, and it was just wonderful to see a community living up to its core beliefs and surrounding the people that they work every day with to support. So I want to thank you so very much for that. That was just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, and we love Kian.
Okay, my question was really, I've heard a couple times concerns about the school use of the pool, and I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit about what partnerships may or may not look like with our local schools.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by school use?
So the information I'm getting is mainly secondhand from people or parents concerned about the fact that their kids, part of swim clubs or swim teams, have to go outside of Sammamish and are not using, and I don't know how accurate this information, so I'm just asking for clarity on what any partnership might look like. It's not an accusation, I just want to learn.
Yeah, just clarifying if you meant schools or outside swim teams. Yes, we actually host 2 swim team groups that come and use our pool at night. Some of it starts before the pool closes, but some of it goes past, so we actually stay later to host these 2 swim groups. We are more than welcome to host the school swim teams if they need places to practice. I believe that our pool isn't the right meter to compete in, but they can practice.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I did want to, I was going to say that it is not an official size pool, so it can't be used for competitions. So.
Any other questions from the council?
And if I may, I just want to thank you guys. I think you guys have been great community partners. I know there's a lot of questions about costs and things, but I know just based on some of the numbers you threw out in terms of staff, I think you said you have 190 staff year-round up to somewhere around 250. Just for comparison, if we were fully staffed, I think we would be at 127 full-time employees here at the city. So we couldn't do that without a huge change. And I guess, have one question, which is, because you are part of the Y system, how often do you have to pull in employees from other locations, like if people call in sick or on vacation or things like that?
My goal would be never, actually, because we have so many staff, we are sometimes able to help other locations. There was a pool in Shoreline that needed our help. Our aquatics director went, as well as some other staff, but we rarely, if ever, I don't want to say never ever, but we rarely send any staff off the plateau.
No, but do you ever have to get help?
Oh, sorry. No, we do not.
Okay. All right, thanks. And I will say, if we staffed the Y during COVID, the city may have gone bankrupt, right? Because we couldn't have afforded to pay everybody if we weren't able to be open for business.
Okay, thank you very much for coming tonight and giving us that presentation. We appreciate it. All right, and I would like to, if Mary Wichter's still on, and if there's no objection from council, go back to public comment and also apologize to Mary. We did not realize that you had pre-registered and would like to go back and give you the opportunity to make your public comment, and my apologies.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, this is Mary Wichter. Thanks for letting me. I did pre-register through public comment. I just wanted to mention a few things. Thanks to the 2 gentlemen who spoke for the Beaver Lake Management District. It is a really excellent thing that happens. I've attended some of their meetings. It's very water quality and environment focused. They do work on a lot of techniques for testing water differently and dealing with invasive plants that come over the years. It's just really well run. It was set up. The money that pays for it is the people themselves. And I believe out of the 1,000 people that live around the lake, 200 of them signed petitions, with 70 of those being around the lake and 140 of those being just off the lake, which is how it's done. So it's not a program cost to the city, but I think it's a program that should be used for leadership to figure out how to do things well. It helps the lake, and even if it isn't a salmon stream, it helps the environment, the wildlife, and also it goes into Lake Sammamish. So I just wanted to say, fully support that, please, and I'm glad that the other people had their stories and support for it as well. And then I fully support what happens with the Y. It's very busy there, but it's run very well, and I think we're really lucky to have it. So I think we need to keep going forward with it. And then just on public comment, people need to be able to come. They need to be able to call in remotely. They need to be able to be safe. And the environment just needs to be calm so that can happen, because people have all sorts of ages, disabilities, have never spoke, or terrified of public speaking. And if you go to any other types of public comment anywhere, you won't be able to clap or make noise or anything. So I think it's really important that the format be so that people can be there, they can be involved, they can have their say. It might be different than somebody else's, but it needs to be safe. So I thought I wasn't going to be able to get on, so I'll speak a little bit short tonight, and I will yield the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the agenda is unfinished business, the 2026 community survey led by Mike Zug, who is also our acting city clerk tonight.
Thank you, and good evening, Council. Mike Sugg, Supervising Management Analyst in the City Manager's Office. Just a short introduction before I turn it over to you all for discussion. As you know, about a month ago, on February 17th, I came to you to present some information on the 2026 Community Survey, which is currently on the city's work plan. The survey was proposed to be completed by Polco, which is the company that completed the city's prior surveys in 2016, 2018, and 2024. Council had extensive discussion on the survey that night and ultimately agreed to postpone the discussion to tonight to allow some time for further deliberation. So this meeting tonight provides an opportunity for you all to discuss what you'd like to do with the survey topic and provide direction to staff. And with that short introduction, I will turn it back to you, Mayor Amato.
Thank you very much. And it looks like we've got Deputy Mayor Treen with her hand raised first. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start with a motion for us to consider. I move to council the 2026 community survey conducted by Polco and replace it with a city-managed community feedback survey, one that could be promoted in at least every edition of our newsletter and includes short, incisive questions that empower residents to prioritize options or select trade-offs related to items coming before the council and to provide comments to the council.
I'll second that. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I would. So I looked into the Polco survey a little bit. It really hasn't been around all that long in its current form. And the one criticism that we heard in the last discussion was that there's not an opportunity for the public to express their trade-offs. If we told them, you ask about a particular item, but they don't realize how much it costs, that might affect somebody's answer. So I think having surveys that are more directed towards specific Sammamish issues would be of much greater use for the city, and it would cost much less.
Okay. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and some comments. So my first question is, how much would that cost? So if we're talking about costs, right, the survey that we would contract out for, and again, we can change the questions, but the survey that we contract out is $30,000. How much would it cost for us to conduct one in-house? And do we have the staff and the expertise to do such a thing? I think that's directed to you, Deputy Mayor, since it was your motion.
Is that directed at me?
Yeah.
I would ask Michael Suggs. I believe that we're issuing the newsletter anyway, so it would be just staff time, and perhaps we could have a subcommittee of council members or other commission members potentially who have items that they would like feedback from the community to go ahead and craft those internally.
And then who would do the statistical analysis, and how would we account for all of the bias that would come? Because anytime you do a survey, you have to do statistical analysis on the results. So who would do that, and how long would that take? And who would write the questions in a way that they are, again, not biased and leading questions? I only ask that because at work, when we do surveys, it's not as simple as like you just ask a question, right? There is a science to it to make sure that you're getting a good result. So it isn't just, we're already sending out a newsletter, so we can just throw some questions in there. We can just pop up a QR code. We also have to think about accessibility and inclusivity, right? The survey that we put out today is done in multiple languages, and the contract covers all of that statistical analysis, putting results up on a dashboard, all of that kind of stuff. So you say it's just staff time, but we are over 20% understaffed at the moment. So who would do it, and how much would that cost? Because staff time isn't free. Last time I checked, we actually do pay our staff. So it's not free. I think you're on mute, Debbie. Sorry.
Trying to unmute and hitting the button twice. I think if we had to invest a little bit of money in having access to an actual survey platform that could summarize results and provide some analysis, not the detailed analysis that we get from Polco, but that's a nationwide survey. Half of what's in there is not directly related to issues at Sammamish at that moment, and I understand the value of it, but I really don't understand the 30,000 value of it, and we would still not have a means to literally just reach out to our residents for information and encourage them to respond with just with their own comments and whatnot. Not everyone wants to come to a council meeting and make comments, but they will respond to an opportunity to give feedback in a request in the newsletter. And I think it would be welcomed. It was one of the complaints we got from people is that our newsletter is not dynamic enough for people to engage.
So I'm going to leave it to Councilmember Boyer because I think he has some questions and comments that are interesting. But I will just share that depending on what the goal of this survey is, opt-in surveys contain self-selection bias, causing overrepresentation of people with strong opinions. They measure intensity of opinion, not prevalence of opinion. Respondents are not representative of the population, even with a large response count. You tend to have underrepresentation of people who are busy or not necessarily engaged. I can think of families with 2 working parents, families with small children. Responses are skewed to advocacy and dissatisfaction, again, not representation. They cannot be used to claim any type of public support or public opposition. They don't represent a majority or minority of positions in a community. They have statistical differences between groups. They cannot be used to make policy mandates or consensus, and they cannot validate a preferred outcome. Bias towards large responses. We tend to think that if we just get a lot of responses, that there's no bias. But when your survey is not statistically valid and there is no randomness, volume does not fix the bias. I have actually 4 pages that I shared with Councilmember Boyer earlier of all of the challenges with opt-in surveys. So they can be used for certain types of feedback, but they cannot be used to inform or direct policy, and they tend to not be representative. I will also share that using a platform like SurveyMonkey, it's very easy for people to spoof it and vote multiple times, and we can't be able to weed that kind of information out. So again, I would like to make sure that we're getting good information, but biased information is biased information. And so I think we just need to be really careful. If the concern is cost, then we should be making sure that whatever we're spending our money on is giving us information that's usable. If the concern is the questions that we're asking in the survey, then let's go fix the questions in the survey and continue to get a good sampling of information, right? So that there's a randomness to who gets it, so that we know that we don't have inherent bias. So I will share this with the rest of council and with staff with all of the bias that comes from any type of opt-in survey, and caution anyone who's using that information to make any sort of decision. Thank you.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to go over what I did last time, so I'll take a different tact. I think that it's this survey itself. I think we're out of sequence actually, because we're going forward without defining the purpose or the research question before choosing or selecting the specific or particular instrument. So. Not in favor of this survey because we don't know why we're doing it or what we're going to do with it, let alone the content itself. So we're making a methodological decision prior to establishing why we're doing this. The reason I say that too is that surveys themselves are tricky tools. They can provide confirmation. They can get public sentiment, but they're really bad at policymaking, decision-making, and, community guidance. They're just not good at that. If we wanted to come up with some developmental and direction setting, we need to go down a different path. So there's a lot of other tools. You can do grounded theory, longitudinal approaches, phenomenology, ethnography, case studies, lots of other choices, except this one is the wrong tool for, I believe, what we want. Now, I'm assuming I know what we want. We have not had that conversation of what we want, so we're out of sequence. After we do that, let's say we choose ethnography, then we choose the appropriate tool with which to collect data. We are now jumping to, hey, here's a tool to collect data. It's not about the cost for me. It's just that we're going to do something and get information that's not actionable. Now, if all we want is confirmation, do a survey. It's not actionable, can't make decisions, bad for policymaking, but if we want just confirmation, sure, do that. Or public sentiment, it gives you that. I think the current version does all of that fairly poorly, because if you read through it, it changes the scale, it changes the questioning, and I don't know, there's a lot to go through. To Mr. Mayor's comments, and also Deputy Mayor and Council Member Stewart, yes, there is a lot of work that goes into this. You have to have a valid and reliable tool as you go forward that requires piloting. Otherwise, we have garbage that we can't use, and I am not willing to make policy decisions on bad information. Thank you.
Councilmember Lamb.
So I continue to support the Polco survey. I haven't seen alternatives that I think are credible. I think they all take staff time. We don't know how much it's going to cost, and most importantly, it's not statistically valid. None of the options that I saw proposed by the mayor says that it is statistically valid. I disagree with Councilmember Boyer, where he says that he doesn't believe that the last survey had actionable items. I think that if you read some of the questions, like there was one that talked about infrastructure. The question was, it was a custom question, ensuring expensive infrastructure projects are financed over time, and 84% agreed that it was essential or very important. And to me, that indicates that people are supportive of bonds. So that is helping us on deciding whether or not to go out for a bond. Just to take a look at some of the other questions, there was, do we agree that the downtown commercial area is vibrant? 36% said no. Residents are dissatisfied with the variety of business and service establishments. 35% are dissatisfied. So to me, that was very indicative of why we pursued moving forward with more commercial in town center. So I think that it does inform policy. And I think for the custom questions, what I'd like to see, and because it will inform our budget choices, is to, and I mentioned this last time, is what are the cuts to city services, if indeed we need to go down that path, is to have those ranked so that the residents can decide, whether or not what 5 services we want cut. So we'll know when the time comes what decisions we need to make. I'd like to see a question on emergency preparedness, similar to the question that we had on are people informed on implementing sustainability measures? Are people informed on what to do in emergency? Are they prepared? Do they know where information is coming from? That would be question 2. And I also think this is a great opportunity for us to do some early polling on the Metropolitan Parks District. Are people in support of a bond that supports our parks? And that's going to be directly related to our budget. So I believe that having this survey will inform those decisions. So I think it's a small price given the information that we can get. It's $15,000, and having staff work on a survey that we don't even know how we're going to go about doing it. It's not going to be statistically valid, and we don't have the staff to do it already. So I am in favor of keeping the Polko survey.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for your comments so far. Mayor, I wanted to thank you for your suggestion about what you thought this could or should become, and I appreciated hearing from you on that. I think, for me, what I think we're running into is the survey came from a previous council. We are clearly a new council, and we all need to come together as to what is our expectation of a survey. What do we want the survey to be about? And that's something, it seems like maybe we're sort of in agreement in it, but we don't have a concrete agreement on what we're trying to make this survey accomplish. And I think before we do anything, we need to know that. And then it also does seem to be a cost issue. So it's 30,000 to the Polko survey, so that's 15,000 a year. That may or may not be a large percentage in our budget, but to some people that is a lot of money, others it may not be. And I know we're trying to look at every line item on our budget and see where we can save money. 10,000 here, 20,000 there. Maybe it does or doesn't add up to a whole lot of money, but maybe it's a good practice, I'm not sure. So I think the cost does matter. So I think before we can really vote on what it is we're doing, I would need to know exactly what it is, what's the point of doing this, what's the cost behind it, when would we expect to see the results. So, you know, if we're not doing it in the iteration that we've been doing it in the past, I think we need to spend a bit more time on what we think the new iteration is going to look like and have another discussion about that, because it seems like we're not in agreement. And I think, like I said, just in order for us to move forward, we have to understand why we're doing it. And we need agreement around that. I know we had public comment earlier on that they don't, some members of the public don't understand why it's taking us so long to make some very simple decisions. But these decisions clearly aren't simple. And if they were, well, we would have made them already. So that's kind of where I feel if we don't have consensus on the Polko survey, then we don't do it, but we need to spend a bit more time finding out what it is we do want to do, instead of spending probably about the same amount of money and maybe not really getting a product that we all can agree on. So that's just my thought. Thank you.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back to the purpose. Without that research question or purpose, the why, not an agreement. I would hate for us to go forward with a 3-4 vote or something like that. That would not be good for the city. I also want to say that I'm not proposing we do nothing. I'm just saying not this. I do think that we often use that term statistical significance as a shield, which we hide behind. That doesn't mean that it has any representativeness. It doesn't mean that at all. And in fact, the last survey didn't pass for statistical significance, so the odds of it being representative are really slim. I would like any survey that we do, and this one does not pass the test, to address in any research, you're going to give your limitations. We have some great ones on non-response bias, availability bias, low information responding, and majoritarian framing. All of those this suffers from. Therefore, if you're going to use this for any meaningful conclusion, you're doing it without a solid foundation. Can you take action from this? Absolutely. Should we? I don't think so. I don't think that this is the right approach. There are other approaches, so I would say that I'm not saying let's do nothing, let's not listen to the public, let's listen to the public, but let's use the appropriate methodology to get the information that we agreed upon that we like. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah. I would like to add that I also agree that we need to agree on what's the purpose of this. What is our goal for collecting data? What is our intention of how we're going to use that data? The one area where I kind of disagree is I do think surveys, a well-written survey, and I'm not saying that the one we have is well-written, but I think a well-written survey actually can be very informative for making some prioritization and policy choices, particularly around the budget. I do think that our custom questions were better than the standard questions. I think the standard questions in that survey, a lot of them weren't necessarily worth it. And so my recommendation is, why wouldn't we fix? So we have a methodology. We need to ask, why didn't we get more responses? Can we fix that, right? So that we have a survey that's going to go out with the randomness that's needed, so that we know that what comes back isn't biased. But I agree, we need to have more respondents. Without hitting that threshold, then that data isn't necessarily any better than a self-selecting survey. So I think there are some questions there that need to be asked, but I would say let's fix a proven methodology and not throw the baby out with the bathwater and choose a methodology that we already know is flawed. So I'm in favor of us not going the route of opt-in surveys, which I couldn't find anything that had any merit for opt-in surveys in terms of making policy decisions or prioritization decisions or showing any type of representation. So I would say, let's try to fix the one we have, make it, let's agree on what the goals are, let's fix the questions, and let's get some feedback on decisions that we're going to have to make on the budget, because I think that that's the really big one. And in discussions that I had offline, I won't call the council member out, but I think he has some very good points, which is if we phrase the questions properly and we give clear choices, then we can get some really good information back on choices that we're going to have to make here on the dais to help inform those policy choices, like, would people like to see us cut certain services or, continue with the current taxing structure? I think those are important questions to get a representative answer back. And I think with 67,000 people in this community, it's really important that we are able to do something that's going to reach a representative sample. I think that's critical. I love that there are people who are engaged, but they don't necessarily, no matter what side of an issue that they're on, they don't necessarily represent the community in a meaningful way. And we really need to be making sure that we're serving the entirety of the community. Thank you.
Councilmember Tran, I'd like to speak before you ask to call the question, if that's what you're going to do.
I had a comment, though,
Okay,
Mayor,
go
if that's
for it.
all right
Yes,
for you.
absolutely.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor, I think your motion is a compromise on collecting some data for the city to make some informed decisions, if for no other reasons, what maybe, whether it's advocacy or not, the data would show us what residents are thinking. I think your motion was an attempt to assume good intent, and that you demonstrated that you respected the council. Similarly, I proposed a compromise in our last meeting, but had no takers on, which was to look at this survey next year, because we just had an election and a lot of the information that was in the previous survey, we actually have that information. I'd like to also address the fact that the bias of the survey was clear, and whether it was valid is definitely another question. It's been spoken about here on this dais about the validity of our last survey, and due to the size of the survey respondents, it would make it invalid by my teachings of data-driven curriculum in an AP stats class. So being accountable, which is another one of our operating agreements, I clearly see this survey as useless. And so to find common ground, moving forward, this is a small compromise that I can support, but the reality is, if I really had a vote, I would tell you that the survey is not worth our $30,000 and that we should move it down the road, if at all, using it. So those are my comments. I will support the motion, but at the same time, I think we should move to just eliminate the survey altogether. Thank you.
Councilmember Lamb.
So we still don't know how long it's going to take to do an alternate survey. We don't know how much it's going to cost. And right now, I see this vote coming down to just throwing it out without an alternative. Our budget season is coming up. There are some good questions that we could ask. I think it's incumbent that we ask those questions and we have the opportunity to do so. If not, do we have an alternative where we can ask these budget questions to our residents and make sure that it's representative of everybody in our city? I don't think so. How are we going to approach this budget? I don't know. So I could see moving forward with POLCO, and this is a 2-year survey. We could work on, in the next year, an alternative to a survey and implement that if it works out. But I don't support throwing the POLCO survey this year.
Councilmember, Deputy Mayor.
So I just want to point out a couple of things. The worst thing we can do is continue to spend time on discussing a $30,000 survey. If we didn't already have it and have had it in the past, and this was just coming up for the first time, I wouldn't even support doing it. When we were asked at the last meeting how the staff were influenced and what decisions were influenced by the results of the survey, they did not identify any. So I originally moved to just abandon the survey because we have so many more issues that are more important to spend our time on. And the public has commented to that extent as well. I believe if we want to get good budget feedback, we need to hold workshops and town halls where public can come and really dig in and understand the issue, not have a 15-word question on a survey and expect that to be useful. So you were absolutely right, Councilmember Treen. I was hoping to have something that would be at least a compromise, but if there isn't one, there isn't one. I would also support a motion to simply remove it completely.
All right, I will speak to the motion. This is not the intent of this community feedback survey is not to get statistically valid information. We are a legislative body that is supposed to represent residents. If we were going to be governing by poll, that would be an entirely different form of government that we don't have. I don't find, just because something is statistically valid doesn't mean it's going to be useful. I view this as an opportunity to provide all of our residents who receive the newsletter, which is all of them, 5 times a year to present the council with their thoughts. Is it going to be statistically valid? I don't think it matters. I think what we're doing is we're giving our residents more opportunity to engage with us. And if we want to listen to it, fine. If we don't, fine. But I think that it's important that we go to residents where they are, and by delivering this directly to their mailbox for them to take online, potentially go to City Hall and get a physical copy. You all saw my email about the ways this could go down. I don't think we should be up here on this dais trying to figure out exactly how it's going to work before we decide to move forward, because we will never move forward. The council has a professional staff who can come up and decide the cadencing and when they can actually execute it, when they have enough staff to do so. But I think this really is about how we want to get and how much feedback we want to get from residents. I sent you all the costs. SurveyMonkey is like $3,200 a year. I think all of our county council members use it to get feedback from their constituents. If it's good enough for Councilmember Sarah Perry, I think the 7 of us can live with the results, even if it's not statistically valid. So we've gone through every council member, I believe, twice here, and with that, we are going to move to a vote on the motion on the floor. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Nay.
So you voted in favor?
Motion carries 4-3.
Can you repeat the motion first? I'm sorry. What was the
We
motion?
can, Deputy Mayor, please repeat the motion.
Yep, I can repeat it. I move to cancel the 2026 community survey conducted by Polco and replace it with a city-managed community feedback survey, with a new survey promoted in at least every edition of the newsletter, and includes short, incisive questions that empower residents to prioritize options or select trade-offs related to items coming before the council and to provide comments.
Can you do the vote again, please?
Did you vote incorrectly, Councilmember Boyer? Did not. Okay, no, the motion carries 4-3. Thank you. We will move on to our next
I have a
item.
question, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have
Are we limited to 2 turns for any motion? Because I did have more questions, but you
we had a motion on the
unilaterally.
floor, which is a debate round. We have 2 in the council rules we go through, I believe is what they are, but then at the same time, the chair called for the vote, so.
Okay, so you can cut off discussion at any time?
Discussion? Yes, I
Unilaterally.
believe, unless our city attorney says otherwise, I believe I can call for the vote because we had a motion on the floor and a second. And so everyone went through 2 rounds here and then we voted.
I do believe I heard a call for the vote.
No, well, the chair called for it, but there was no vote on a call for the question. But I'm just curious, because I just didn't know we were going to cut off questions and debate. And it's okay, I just want to understand if we're limited to 2,
I will say that the question was called and the vote was taken and it was a 4-3 vote. So I think the time is past for debate.
Yeah, I was more asking about going forward. If we're limiting it to 2 turns, I just want to know that in advance.
We did this time.
So it's just at whatever you just, it's fine, it's at your discretion. So I don't know how many turns I'll get. It just depends on when you want to call the question.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I had a question related to the motion that we just made. I just want to make sure that the alternative format is in translated languages because the deputy mayor is saying that it will be in the newsletter and our newsletter is not translated. So I want to make sure that it is.
Who were you asking your question to?
To the city manager, because it sounds like it's going to be kicked over into his court.
Mayor, we'll have to get back on what that looks like on if we were translating each issue and how many languages and those kinds of pieces. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to new business. We've got City of Sammamish to form Renew Lake Management District Number 1 in Beaver Lake Watershed, and Audrey Starcy will be leading that.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council. I'm Audrey Starcy, your Public Works Director. I am joined tonight by Jen Rubinelli, our Management Analyst for Public Works. We do have a short presentation for you, and then we ask that you consider approving the resolution of intent to form the Beaver Lake Management District.
Okay, good evening, Council. My name is Jen Rubinelli. I am the Management Analyst for Public Works, and I should be sharing my screen in 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so here is our overview for our presentation this evening. We will go over what a lake management district is, brief history on the Beaver Lake Management District. We will discuss the district renewal, community support, and next steps. So what is a lake management district? Lake management districts are governed by RCW 3661. The purpose of a lake management district is to establish a formal mechanism for stewardship of a lake. So stewardship can include control or removal of invasive aquatic plants and vegetation, monitoring water quality, studying water quality problems, and creating management plans. A lake management district also provides funding for the activities associated with the stewardship. So brief history on the Beaver Lake Management District. The district was initiated based on community support in 1995, and then when the city was incorporated, it assumed oversight of the district. There have been 2 renewals, being 10 years each, of the district since the city assumed oversight, so in 2006 and then in 2016. So the current term we are in right now expires at the end of this year. So as part of the Beaver Lake Management District, we do have an advisory board. You heard from 2 of the advisory board members earlier today. There are 5 board members. They must own property in the watershed, and they represent the community's priorities and needs, while the city staff provide administrative support and the city contracts with King County for technical support. Part of that technical support comes in the form of routine water quality sampling and testing. So we do sample physically from all 3 lake basins. There is some automated sampling that takes place. There is an annual water quality and vegetation survey, and there are invasive species treatments and administration covered by the city staff and the county staff support. And to be clear, the county staff are the ones doing the water quality monitoring. So to date, some accomplishments of the district are that the water quality of Beaver Lake is excellent. Year over year, it's showing really strong trend signs or good health. There has not been a toxic cyanobacteria algae bloom in many years, which is a great sign. Through the district's efforts, the fragrant water lily has almost been completely eradicated from the lake, and that is a noxious weed. In 2024, the yellow flag iris we started treating that. And then in 2024, the county staff also identified a new invasive, and there was a treatment plan created to control that species. So for all this stewardship, right, how is it paid for? So residents within the Beaver Lake watershed, they are billed annually by King County, and then the city receives that revenue every year. BLMD funds, they appear in our 408 revenue and expenditures, but these funds are designated for exclusive BLMD work plan use. So every year, lakefront property owners are billed $306. Lakefront property makes up 55% of the annual revenue, and then the non-lakefront property owners are billed $31 per year, and that's 45% of the annual revenue. The 10-year district lifecycle budget is determined in the resolution of intent creating the district. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the current district, it ends on December 31st of this year. So the BLMD Advisory Board did make a motion to recommend pursuing renewal for another 10-year term at their special meeting in December. There were 2 subcommittees formed by the advisory board. One subcommittee was to work on the work plan for the new 10-year term. They determined that the work plan would remain the same. So that would be water quality sampling and testing, annual lake survey and reporting, invasive species treatment, and administration. So with that work plan, the funding would increase slightly just due to inflation. So there would be a $14 per year increase. Oh, excuse me. Okay, $14 per year increase to lakefront properties and a $2 increase to non-lakefront properties per year. And then we would advise that the advisory board stays on. Okay, so The other subcommittee formed from the BLMD Advisory Board spearheaded a petition in support of renewal of the district. So there were postcards mailed to every property within the watershed. The petition was open from December through February. There were 209 unique signatures registered in support of renewing the district. 73 of those were lakefront, 137 were non-lakefront. So this is a really strong demonstration of support for the district from the entire watershed community. So based on the advisory board recommendation and the community support, the staff recommendation tonight is to adopt the resolution of intent to form the 2027-2036 BLMD. Okay, so if the resolution tonight is adopted, staff would return on May 5th for a public hearing. There would also be a resolution submitting the question to landowners for the new district. There would be a city-operated vote via ballot for landowners that we hope to take place in May. That vote would only be for folks within the Beaver Lake watershed. And then staff would return throughout the year, just following the process outlined in RCW 3661. We would continue managing the district as is, and the goal would be for a seamless transition from the end of this district into the new one. So we do have some recommended motion language, but that is the presentation, and I will go back to the recommended motion and answer any questions.
Councilmember Treen.
Okay, hi. So Jen, so who's responsible for retrofitting any of the facilities over time? Okay, so the other question, is there a weir on this lake? No. Okay, so, why do I ask the question? So the question is, who's responsible for any retrofitting of facilities? Is that the city's responsibility or this group?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Do you mean any stormwater facilities or actual physical buildings?
In the stormwater, well, in the water, the hydro.
So funding, it's a partnership. So this is helping to fund sampling and different things. The water quality is excellent. Any stormwater infrastructure that may be going into the lake, and if it's city-owned infrastructure, the city would be responsible for that, just as the same as any other stormwater infrastructure.
And if it's private, then the private owners around the lake would be responsible for drainage or for any facilities
for
that
the actual
that's been
infrastructure.
built. Okay, here's why I ask, because Beaver Lake is Sammamish. It acts as the headwaters for Laughing Jacobs Creek. And so this stream flows out of that lake and then it moves through the Hazel Wolf wetlands, which is managed by Fatera. And then we eventually drains directly into Lake Sammamish. So that leads me to my next question, because Jen made the comment that all of the watershed community would be advised or contacted. And so it seems to me, based on the map that we saw in the agenda packet, that the community is just cut to the chase. It doesn't represent the full what I understand to be a watershed community for Beaver Lake, because that would then include all of Hazel Wolf wetlands and the communities around that and Laughing Jacobs Creek, which if that's the case, then that watershed goes all the way down through the city of Issaquah. So do you see where my challenge comes then? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this. What I'm saying is I need to understand the definition of what you're saying is a watershed community versus what my understanding of what a watershed is. When I speak of a watershed, I teach this stuff. So when I speak of a watershed, I have a different understanding of what a watershed is. And so you're saying a watershed community, I just need to know, is that limited to only the community that you have outlined in the agenda packet?
Yes.
Okay.
So in it, as I believe it's attachment B, as part of the resolution of intent in your packet tonight, there is a map that is from 2025. So the parcels outlined in that map are what we are considering the Beaver Lake watershed. Does that answer your question?
That answers my question, because I think that's super important that we understand that we're approving, if I move to adopt the resolution to form this management group, right, the water doesn't just stay at the lake. It flows down to another lake, which then flows to another lake, which flows to the ocean. So, so when you look at especially an open watershed, I have just a slightly different definition. So I just want to say thank you. I listened to the residents who spoke, and I'm in favor of us adopting a resolution of intent to form or to continue for the next 10 years a lake management district for the Beaver Lake watershed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
I'm just confirming, I'm looking at the map that's in the agenda. So everybody in the blue and in the red, they pay the dollar amounts. Okay. I'm curious about like the Plateau Club, because, they have they use herbicides, pesticides, whatever, and they don't pay anything. So it just seems like the burden is on these people that are directly surrounding the lake versus people that actually may impact the watershed.
Yeah, we might have to get back to you.
You'll get back to me on that? Okay, thanks.
Mr. City Manager, did you have a comment?
My only comment was this has been the traditional size of the district as it was originally created, and that's what the group recommended to bring back. And so there may be other parts that might be part of that, but for tonight, that's what the district is being recommended. What folks voted on to bring this forward was the map that's attached here. So respect to your question, I don't know that we can change that at the moment in terms of what we do with the management district boundaries at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. It was just a question. I was just interested in, if we're truly concerned about this watershed, like a club, this golf course, who would probably have a lot of chemicals and use a lot of chemicals. I think there should be some equity in who's paying to help maintain this watershed.
Not a specific answer to your question, but I would like to point out that RCW 3661, there is pretty specific guidance about the funding and about the fee structure there. So I'm not sure that we would be able to flex or have sort of a scale, if you will, for this district.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to express how happy I am that we have a lake in our city that is being maintained and fighting the invasives, because I know not all the lakes around here have that kind of benefit. So I congratulate the residents of Beaver Lake that supported this back when it was formed, so that we could have, take care of the yellow flag iris and the other invasives that are coming before they take over the whole lake. So congratulations to you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion that I move to adopt the resolution of intent to form the Lake Management District 1 in the Beaver Lake watershed.
Second.
And
moved and seconded. Any discussion? Would you like to speak to your motion?
I would. I just want to thank the staff and the folks in the Beaver Lake watershed area for all the work that they do, and appreciate this. I agree with you, Councilmember Lamb. We should look and see if there are any options we have for people who may be impacting this but aren't directly in the watershed, if there are other ways we can have them help to pay for this. Thanks.
All right, seeing no other lights on, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Council. We will be back in May.
Thank you very much. Okay, up next is a discussion on the solid waste collection contract. And I guess we're ready to go.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Council. Audrey Sarcy. I am joined this evening by Jen Rubinelli, Public Works Management Analyst. And we are also joined online by Evan Fisher, Senior Management Analyst, as well as Jeanette Jurgensen. She is the city's consultant for solid waste procurement with Been There Consulting. Jen and Jeanette, whenever you are ready, we do have a brief presentation for you this evening.
All right. Good evening, Council, again. I hope everyone is ready to talk trash this evening. I had to get it out of the way. So this evening, we will be presenting to you the solid waste collection contract procurement processes. So as part of this presentation, we'll do a refresher on our current solid waste collection contract. We'll walk through the options for procuring a new collection contract available to you, some pros and cons. We do have a staff recommendation. We are looking for your direction tonight on the process. And then we've got a couple questions for you that we'd like some feedback on. So the current solid waste collection contract for Sammamish, we contract with Republic Services. Our contract will end on December 31st, 2028. We have amended this contract twice so far. The first amendment was a compliance amendment with King County disposal fee calculations. The second one was to include the Kalani service area, level set Kalani service. This extended the contract and did increase rates. As part of our current contract, residents have embedded garbage, recycling, and compostables collection and disposal. We do allow self-hauling for residents, as a note. And then garbage and recycling collection and disposal are included for multifamily and commercial customers. So we have almost 20,000 single-family residential customers in the city of Sammamish for garbage, recycle, and compost. Along with our multifamily and commercial customers, this means that Monday through Friday, there are 19 trucks on the road. So solid waste really does affect everyone. And as I mentioned previously, our current contract with Republic Services ends on December 31st, 2028. So standard procedure is we need to allow 18 months for a new contract to mobilize. This means working backwards, we must execute a new contract by June of 2027. Working backwards from there, that's why we're in front of you tonight. So you've got a couple options for procuring a new collection contract. We do have a staff recommendation for you, which is a competitive request for proposals, which we might refer to as an RFP. And then the alternative option is to pursue direct renegotiations with Republic Services. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeanette to go through some elements of both processes.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jeanette Jurgensen from Been There Consulting, and I've been working with the city for a few years on solid waste collection contracts, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. So on the chart on the slide, it's very wordy, but I wanted to give an overview of the differences between a competitive procurement process and the renegotiation with an incumbent hauler, in this case, Republic Services. So the first thing in the contract is both contracts would look very similar. The city is going to write these contracts based upon council feedback and community feedback. And so the element that is different is in the RFP, all contractual requirements must be achievable and promote fair competition. When we renegotiate, we can put other elements in that maybe not considered as fair or achievable as for other haulers because we're doing a negotiation. But in general, these two contracts would look extremely similar. The biggest difference between the two is the method validation. When you do a competitive procurement, the contract goes out and we get quotes back in the proposals for that contract. And so we can show the community, we can show council, here are the rates that came back for this contract. If we renegotiate, we would need to complete a solid waste rate comparison study to be able to show the community that this was a good deal and a fair deal for the city. In King County, most cities perform RFP processes. There's a few that will renegotiate or do an RFP, but in general, most places in King County do an RFP, and that is just due to the competitive environment. However, across the state, most cities renegotiate because they only have one hauler in the area. City staffing would require significant hours through this process. We're going to talk a little bit more about a timeline on the future slide, but in the RFP process, it will be about 12 to 15 months that will stretch probably about 250 hours. If we do a negotiation, that is going to compress down to 6 months, and it may require more hours from city staff in that time because there's less work that the consultant can take over. And the last point I want to make is that an RFP is ideal when a significant rate increase is expected, and this just ensures the best value for ratepayers. Renegotiations are great when the community is fully satisfied with the hauler and they're not interested at all in exploring other options. So the next slide, we'll talk about community outreach and engagement. So in a competitive process, we have a longer time to engage the public. And so one of the elements that most jurisdictions do in King County is to do a community survey. And the longer we put this out there, that we can get it in the newsletter, we can do it on social media, we can put it on the website. We have more options to promote the survey when we have a longer period of time during the competitive RFP process. There is also the option of doing a professional representative survey or using funds, for example, to send postcards or do other things to try to encourage the community survey. If we renegotiate, we are on a tight timeline, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So we really only have about 2 to 3 weeks to complete a website survey, essentially. The questions will be the same in both the competitive RFP and the renegotiation to the community, but it's just the length of time that we have and the ability to promote it. And I'm going to hand it back to Jen to talk about the timeline.
All right, so with our staff recommendation, we'd be working with the timeline at the top of the slide. So March through August of this year, we'd be performing community outreach and developing the RFP, and we would return to council for contract award in April to May of 2027, allowing for that 18-month mobilization period I mentioned earlier. If we attempt to renegotiate with Republic, those negotiations would take place now through June, and we would return to council approximately June to July of this year. However, if negotiations failed or if council declined to award the contract to Republic Services, we would bump down to the very bottom of the slide. We must allow time to perform a full competitive RFP in the event that the negotiations failed or in the event that council declined to award the contract to Republic. So that is the compressed timeline that Jeanette was mentioning earlier. And we would still do our best to allow for an 18-month contract mobilization period. And we would return to council to award a contract in May or June of 2027 in that case, if negotiations failed. So I mentioned earlier, the staff recommendation tonight is a competitive RFP for all of the reasons we've mentioned before, but staff really do feel strongly that this is the most fair and equitable process, the most transparent process for the public and for you. So we are seeking your direction tonight. However, regardless of options selected, rates will likely go up. Recent contracts have seen 15 to 20% increases. We will need to retain residential embedded service to be in compliance with the Organics Management Law and the Recycling Reform Act. We will align the new contract with current industry best practices, and we will be assessing, council themes, community, survey feedback, and staff identified services for the new contract terms. So as part of the discussion tonight, we would love to hear from each of you your ranking of highest to lowest priority of these contract themes, being low rates, innovative new features, sustainability, and maintaining existing service levels. The information you provide us tonight will inform the development of the new contract terms in addition to guiding our community engagement. So in addition to ranking those overall contract themes, we are looking to gather any items for consideration that you'd like for us to look into more, potentially survey the community on, or consider as alternatives for the new contract. So just to recap, we are looking for direction from you tonight. We have provided some recommended motion language for the staff recommendation, and then we've got a couple questions for you. And that's the presentation. So I'm going to go back to the recommended motion and questions.
Thank you very much. We have Councilmember Treen.
Thank you, Mayor. So first, I don't need a longer time to do another survey. Second is I don't want to spend the money for 250 hours of work. I'm not interested in using funds to try to encourage the residents to tell me what we need to do about their garbage. So right now I'm talking trash. Second, I don't really respond well to feeling strongly about something that may or may not be fair based on someone's opinion. And the statement of will likely go up, of course, the cost is going to go up. So will likely, how about the cost is going to go up? So how much? That's the question. So when I look at this, I'm thinking to myself is I would, instead of doing a motion to move forward with the staff recommendation, my first initial thought on this is that I would rather renegotiate with Republic Services to continue the solid waste collection services, and that is the solid waste collection, including residential, commercial collection, disposal and processing of garbage, recycling, and compostables. That's what I think. I think that is the direction that the council should take. I may be sitting here all alone, letting you know. So my question then is, because that's my position, that's where I stand. The only thing that may change my opinion on that would be, what is the contract with Been There Consulting, and what's it costing the city for them to do the process?
So the contract with Been There Consulting for the procurement of a new collection contract is $45,000 at a flat rate fee. Even if we are to renegotiate directly with Republic Services, we still need to contract with Been There Consulting. Existing staff do not have the skills or capabilities to put together an entire draft, like solid waste collection contract with the knowledge that we have. We do require consultant services for support.
At a cost of $45,000, whether we go with your recommendation or the recommendation I just made.
To attempt renegotiations directly with Republic, I believe would lower the consultant costs by about $5,000. But regardless of the process, we are expecting anywhere from 300 to upwards of 400 hours of work from our consultant for this process, regardless of option.
That's in addition to the staff time that was on the slide.
Yeah, because you guys are providing all the information to the consultant, which that's another issue. Thank you.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, guys. First, I'd like to spend the next hour talking about surveys. Okay. Okay, just trying to make you guys smile out there. You know, I guess I'm a competition-based person, so I would want to see a competitive bid out there and a desire for higher values. So maybe I'm hopeful, maybe that's wishful thinking, but that's where I stand. As far as the ranking is concerned, I really don't like ranking those because I think we had prior discussions around doing all of those, because if you say, hey, I want sustainability and not the others, I don't see it like that. I think what I would do is set up a rubric to say, okay, each one of these get 25 points and let's see how all the proponents do against that, and then you could score that. That's like asking fast, cheap, or good, choose two. And I don't like that. It's like all these here, I want all these. As far as the public, I suspect they want all these too. I'm not sure what the survey is going to tell you that you don't already know. But I have to admit, I don't have a lot of experience in what you're going to ask or how that's going to go or what the public says. I haven't talked trash with a lot of people. But I would change the rubric instead of just having a ranking like that. Don't put me in that box. I'd rather have you just assign weights to each one of them and then have the proponents perform against each one of those and see who does the best. Now, if there's somebody that, you know, nails it on low cost, the question might be, or sustainability, the question is the weighting of all these. And at this point, I don't see any reason why not, or why I wouldn't weight them equally. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I am curious what we're surveying the community for, just out of curiosity. Like what kinds of information are we looking to get?
Happy to answer that question.
Excellent. I figured you would be. First of all, I've never talked trash with someone, so happy to talk trash. So this is very exciting.
I'm so glad. All right, so surveys. I know it's a hot topic. However, the intent of us surveying the community ties into our question number 2 that we have for you tonight. So if there are features or amenities that are not currently in our contract or that are in our contract that we're examining for the future terms, everything comes with a cost. So part of this survey is gathering community feedback on how they are valuing service versus something like cost, right? We do not have specific question language prepared for you tonight, but that is the aim of our community engagement.
So I know surveys, hot topic. I just want to make sure that I think it's important that we do get feedback from the community, but I also want to make sure that we are getting, again, good feedback from a range of people, not just those who are already super engaged, right? Because I think this literally impacts every single person in the community at least every week, if not every day, right? Unfortunately, we all make trash every day. And to make sure that we're getting information from, for example, those who live in multifamily versus single family, and making that differentiation. Because I know that one of the things that we've heard repeatedly is that we kind of have a blanket set of services that haven't been meeting the needs of those who live in multifamily, right? They're still paying for example, the same price for composting, even though they don't necessarily have yard waste because they don't have a yard to mow. So making sure that we understand their needs, which might be very different than those living in single family homes. In terms of, creating a rubric, I heard Councilmember Boyer say everything's a number 1. But I think I think if we go with a competitive process, cost is going to be a factor, right? And hopefully we can drive that. I do think having the appropriate range of services for the variety of customer types is important. I think sustainability is critical. If for no other reason, we have legal things we have to meet, and we have our own goals, right? Our own stated goals in our policies today of reducing solid waste. So we have to make sure that whatever terms we're looking for, that we make sure that they help us achieve those goals, right? So I think those are going to be critical. And so I'm not sure that weighting everything the same it is accurate. I would leave that up to you guys, but I think we have to make sure that we're compliant with state laws, we're compliant with our own codes and our own stated goals in our own policies. We meet those flexibility needs for a variety of customers. And yeah, I think while I think we could potentially negotiate directly with Republic, I would assume if it goes out competitively, they're going to give us their best price through that anyway. So I don't know if there's an advantage to having a one-on-one negotiation where they're going to offer us some better terms there than if we put it out to a competitive bid. So if there were things you were going to try to negotiate one-on-one with Republic, just make sure you put those in the RFP process. That would be my recommendation. Thanks.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. I would go with the staff recommendation to issue a competitive RFP. Not having done a survey myself as to how the public feel about this, but I would assume that if we didn't do that, the public would have something to say as to why did we not do that? Why did we not go and try to seek out the best competitive contract, and considering we're going to have this contract for considerable length of time. So I would support doing that. To get back to the questions that you asked us and to rank them 1 through 4, which I did, and I think number 1 would be low rates. That has to be for me. Number 2 would be sustainability. Number 3 would be maintaining existing service levels. Number 4 would be innovative new features. When you asked about the amenities, one thing I liked about our current contract, because I just used it myself recently, was that the bulk pickup items, that you can put that out and that's free. And I think that's a great service. And I only just discovered that. I didn't realize that was free. So that was great. The other thing I think that might help as well is, and I just feel this is just a personal opinion from when I manage my own household budget, is that what can I do as a consumer to reduce my own cost of a particular utility? So I can reduce my cost of my electric bill by going around the house like I do, like a lunatic, and switching off lights all the time and making sure, that the thermometer is at 65, and like somebody else had said earlier today, put on an extra sweater, which I am doing at home. But what can I do to lower my garbage bill? And so I wonder if we had a scenario where customers were able to kind of pick and choose on a weekly or monthly basis what features they wanted to use. I've noticed that for myself, I'm not filling up that grey bin nearly as much as I used to, but I'm filling up the compost and the recycling much more. So maybe I could opt out of garbage pickup. Maybe I only had that once a month, and I could reduce my bill that way. So if we had some kind of flexibility, and there is that in the current contract that we have, but it seems quite cumbersome to do that online, to kind of make those choices, or at least it was for somebody like me. So that if we were able to do that, and a customer could go online very easily and kind of click on, yes, I want this today, no, I don't want that. The way I'm able to do that with my milk delivery, for example, I can pick which weeks I don't want it, and so I'm not left with 7 gallons of milk in the fridge, and I'm not going to drink half of it. So I kind of think about that to help our residents be able to have some sort of control, given that, yes, we did bring in the utility tax, and rates are going up, certainly not going down, that we had some sort of control over our usage, and that we could control our own utility ourselves in some form. And that's it. That's all I have.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, thank you. It is hard for me to choose between cost and sustainability, so I'm going to say they're both important to me, especially sustainability, given that there is tremendous environmental impact with landfills, and that there's a long-term disposal issue with Cedar Hills landfill, and Cedar Hills landfill is going to close in about 15 years, so diversion is really important, which goes back to the sustainability. So I definitely think we need a survey to hear what residents want in terms of their services. I have a whole list, and so I will try to be brief. The first is every other week garbage. I've talked about this. I've mentioned it, I swear, for the last 4 years. So either it's standard service every other week and weekly becomes an additional cost, or at a minimum, every other week is an option to the weekly. So that just gives the residents an option. I am interested in more education for the sustainability aspect, just to improve diversion. And with that, I'd like as part of the RFP, something about interest in a contamination reduction program. Just because the amount of contamination in recyclables determines the recyclable commodities, how much you can sell. So that would definitely improve what goes into landfill. I'm interested in the service provider having a front-loading truck, because from what I understand, it's more efficient, and it will also reduce contamination, because if it's front-loading and emptying out the bins, the driver can actually see what's being dumped. I am interested in the provider having electric, being able to transition to electric. At a minimum, they're using CNG, compressed natural gas, and no diesel. I am interested in extra bins during the month of November, because that seems to be the period where most people need it. And I am interested in what we're going to do for multifamily. We don't do anything for multifamily right now. There's no recycling bins, and there is no yard waste or food or organics. I know in Kirkland, they do offer food waste collection at multifamily. So they'll set out a 35-gallon or 64-gallon bin weekly. And so people that live in multifamily can dispose of organics. And they also have a community drop-off area, whether it's at their city hall or some other location. So I'm interested in whatever hauler we end up using, that they look at that within the RFP as well. I'm interested in whether or not, I'm interested in the new types of materials in the future. This is a really long contract. It's 10 years. And especially when we talk about diversion, like multi-layer plastic is a big one. It's in, like when you go down the frozen food aisle, it's like every plastic package is multi-layer plastic. Is there any hauler that will be collecting multi-layer plastic in the future, or any other type of new types of materials that aren't already being collected? And I took a look at rates, and I'm interested in this. This isn't a hauler question. This is probably more of a staff question. I'm interested in learning why our rates are so different compared to our neighboring cities. So Renton, for instance, pays $37 for, this will be as a part of their new contract. Redmond pays $27, and we are up at 53. So it could be, topography, it could be many reasons, but I'm really interested and curious to find out why our rates are so different. And that's all I got. I may have more, so if I do, I will send them to you. Thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks. Oh, I appreciate that long list, Amy. I have not I can tell you've been participating in the solid waste work, so it's great. My ranking, I think, would be low rates. Well, I have a question first. What does sustainability mean in the context of trash? Because I'm not sure exactly what that means and what kinds of things that entails. That's going to either the staff or Jeanette.
They're deciding who's going to answer right now.
Okay. I would actually love if Jeanette could answer first.
Certainly. So sustainability, as you pointed out, could mean different things to different people. Part of this is gathering the discussion, but in general, sustainability would mean things like the collection vehicles, diesel, CNG, electric vehicles, like where are we on that sustainability scape? A lot of it will go into education and outreach. And then I think overarching is just how are we aligning the contract and the sustainability with the sustainability goals of the city? Is what are we writing into the contract that can help the city get to those goals? So I know that's not a very direct question, but part of this is just gathering feedback of how we can help write a contract that's the best for the city without costing too much.
Okay, great. I mean, low rates is my number one priority. Innovative new features is my least priority. I don't think people, I don't know. There could be something really amazing there, but I wouldn't want to have to pay more for it, I guess. Maintaining existing service levels, I think, is really important, but that doesn't mean the same pickup schedule. Just the outcome needs to work for each resident, but it doesn't have to be the same schedule we're on or the same number of bins. I know we don't have the most efficient use of bins right now, so we would want to work on that. And then I would put sustainability ahead of innovative new features. So, and I really was torn. I spent a lot of time thinking about whether to go to RFP or just try to negotiate something with the existing service provider. And I do believe that either way we'll get the best offer that they can give from our existing service provider. So it really does seem the most equitable and most effective way to work on the pricing, to have an actual RFP and see what's out there. So I appreciate that extra work.
I did, Councilmember Boyle, I'll come back to you. Sure. The city, so you had a table up there that showed city staff 250 hours versus 300 on the going to a renegotiation versus RFP. I'm curious, does the 300 on the other side include the time, is the assumption baked in that you will end up going to RFP, or is it 300 staff hours and just the negotiation?
Just to negotiate.
Okay.
And that's a compressed
I'm having a challenging time understanding how we'd end up with more hour. Either way, you're negotiating a contract. So how do you end up in a renegotiation spending significantly more time than on an RFP plus negotiation of a new contract?
I can answer this, and then Jeanette, if I miss anything, please jump in. So with both processes, staff will have to develop the draft contract language. When we're on the compressed schedule, we're having to do the same amount of work under less time, and then you add in the fact that we will have to sit down with Republic and negotiate Section A, Section B, Section C, Section D, term by term, right? So those 250 hours from the RFP, the same work, a lot of that same work, will be carried over to the attempted negotiations, because we will still be going through that process of drafting those contract terms. And that's a lot of work from staff and our consultant. And then we have to add more time because we're doing face-to-face negotiations with the hauler. Jeanette, did I miss anything?
I think that was pretty good.
Okay.
When we do an RFP, I can do a lot of the work, or the comments that the haulers have for last minute tweaks to the contract won't necessarily require as much face-to-face as a negotiation would. Because we are saying in the RFP, we're releasing it as is. We have the Q&A come in, but we're basically saying you're taking this contract as is. When we do an RFP, when it's the renegotiation, they have the ability to open up and look at each contract section and work with us on adjusting that so it works for both parties.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. It's just not mathing out to me on how that one process is, but it doesn't matter. So on your 4 questions, I would put low rates at the top, followed by like a tie on innovative new features. And I guess a lot of these are so intertwined that it's very challenging to give you a 1 through 4. But I think absolutely number 1 should be low rates. That's what people are going to be caring most about every single month. I'm also having a challenging time understanding what maintaining existing service levels means, especially if we're talking about going to every other week trash service. Some people could view that as a decrease in level of service. So that's also one that's challenging for me to rank. Directionally, I think I'm aligned with what Councilmember O'Farrell was saying on the giving families more power in the price they pay. So an innovative new feature that might result in lower rates for some families could be weighing trash and charging people based on that, or something. I don't know what that looks like, but ultimately I think my highest priority would be giving people the power to have more control over what they're paying. And I don't know how you get there, but that would be something I'm going to be looking at closely. And then on sustainability, yes, that's important, but the way I would look at it is the amount of money spent per result, whether that's metric ton of carbon emissions or methane or whatever. Like being able to show that we were really sustainable in a way that, didn't move the needle at all, but our residents were paying, that they're not going to be very happy about that. But at the same time, our residents do value sustainability, and so paying a little bit more and having a big impact would be important. So the hit is what matters. The impact for me is what matters on that front. And I guess I don't know if the compressed timeline here with going to direct negotiations versus the RFP. I guess 10 years from now, maybe a note to future staff would be maybe start the process early and ask our current hauler to send. I don't know if you can, but send your best offer to us and see if we want to go through this process. But right now, the way it's presented is it's kind of really pigeonholed into going with the RFP process. I think that's likely the best outcome for residents, but at the same time I feel like it's been presented in a way that's kind of the only option given the compressed timeline here. So I do support going to the RFP process as much as I personally like Republic Services. I've had no issues with them. And I think they are good, and I think there's the unknown concerns me. Someone in an RFP could come across really great, and then all of a sudden they're not. When they're dealing with the hills and the snow and things they're not used to. We've got a hauler right now that has a lot of experience in Sammamish, and that has a lot of value. So I don't know how you take that into consideration, but anyway, I hope that helps in some way. And with that, I'll move over to Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. See, first of all, I would say I appreciate the gravity of this decision. This is important, and I am moved by the comments of the council. So I see Jeanette taking copious notes, trying to catch up with the long list of things. Just one small thing I would add is, when I look at the 1 to 4, the reason why I would say equal weighting is that I'm trying to think not what I would want, but what would 66,000 people want. And my guess is that everybody's going to want something different. And finally, when you tally all these, we're going to have, what I call the more data you get, you're going to have the central limit theorem, means that we're going to have regression to the mean. It's all going to come down to being equal. That's what's going to happen, I predict. Now, if you can tell me that that's not going to happen, or if we have compelling data where it's weighted in some way, I'm really good with that. It's just I'm trying to think about 66,000 people and what they would say. This one wants low cost. This one really will pay for sustainability and so forth. I say when you stir all that together, we're going to come out to be even. Could be wrong. But I hope that you guys can come back with some information that shares where all the community is, and then I think that'd be very informative. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I love these discussions because every time people talk, it gets the juices flowing and you get more ideas. And I'm sure staff is like, great, more ideas, can't wait. Just kind of building on the mayor's question, if I understood what you were trying to explain is that by going with the RFP, some of that negotiation work kind of gets done through the RFP process as opposed to you having to go line item by line item on each thing. Is that why the RFP is less staff time than the direct negotiation? Did I get that right, or did I totally misunderstand that?
With an RFP, and please jump in, but we would have a set RFP. It may have a handful of variations, but just like any other project, we have a set RFP that would go out. And so that is somewhat taking it as is, where a negotiation, we would be going schedule by schedule.
So is there any potential for better outcomes from a direct negotiation versus the RFP? Because my gut says an RFP is going to get us the best results, but I just want to confirm that gut check that says, could we get better results if we did a one-on-one negotiation versus, as Councilmember Lamb pointed out, other cities have, significantly lower rates. Is that partially due to our hauler, or is that because, we have a lot of trash? I don't know. So I think that's an important thing to understand there, right? Are we going to go more boilerplate if we go with the RFP and we could get something that's more custom to us? So that's, I think, a big question for us to understand is, why are our rates so much more? Is it because of us or them? Is it you or is it me?
Can we talk on rates first? Go ahead.
So I think we can provide more information. We can come back to you with more information about why our current rates are the way they are.
Okay.
We'll start there. And then talking about the draft contract.
Mm-hmm.
So RFP versus attempted negotiations, staff will still be starting from drafting the contract.
Okay.
Based on feedback given here, based on feedback from the community.
Okay.
Right? So it is not our goal to end up with a quote boilerplate, end quote. We have not gone through a direct renegotiation before. So I would look to Jeanette when it comes talking pros v cons for that specific process.
Mm-hmm. Jeanette, you've been put on the spot.
Sorry, I was trying to click on mute. This is a very tricky one. I do recognize haulers do say you can get a better deal when you directly negotiate with us. And that could very well be true. The problem is we need to be able to show the community how this is a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go into that very in-depth rate composition. And so that would address, those are the kinds of things we would address. Speaking of why our rates are higher than Renton's when we look at service features, credits, different elements. So it does cost the hauler, I want everyone to recognize, it does cost the hauler probably at least $10,000 to put together a proposal. So they are saving costs that they can pass along, but in the grand scheme, I don't know if that $10,000 value, what that equates to on their side. I can't answer that. They are likely to give some more elements and features in the contract, but again, that rate comparison is the only thing we would have to show, is this a good deal for the community?
Sure. And how much would a rate survey, how much would that cost us if we did try to go with a direct negotiation? Because I do agree we'd have to do a rate survey, because we do have to, from a fiduciary standpoint, if we don't go with a competitive process, we have to really be able to show that we've done some due diligence and that we're not giving some sort of preferential treatment. No offense to Ms. Weicker, but we have to do what's right by our community.
The rate comparison study would be included in the $40,000 consultant fee for the renegotiation.
Okay.
So instead of my time being focused on the RFP process, we would focus a lot of that time onto doing the rate comparison and doing a really in-depth evaluation.
Okay. I was going to call out that I think sustainability for me is both things. One is, how do we drive better diversion rates? That is one element of sustainability. And then the second element of sustainability is, how sustainable is the provider, right? And that is not just in their trucks. I think that's a big part of it, but also in what kind of a job do they do in terms of, how they process stuff after they pick it up. So I think that's, to me, sustainability. The lowest rates, obviously we all want the lowest rates. I'm also thinking longer term though, because better diversion rates is going to provide us all lower rates longer term, right? If we just go with the cheapest option, but we do a really bad job and everything goes to the landfill, that's going to end up costing us all a whole lot more for a whole lot longer, because we know that is skyrocket expensive. So again, yes, I want low rates, but I want low rates for a long time, not just in the immediate future. So all of these are really hard to pick and choose one versus the other. I do think they're all very intertwined. One of the things that we haven't talked about at all is understanding how we manage things like, and this might be part of the RFP process, how do we manage when people say, oh, well, I want a smaller trash bin because I pay less for it, so I'm just going to put all my trash in the recycle bin. Right? I know that that's a concern. So how does that get managed? I think that needs to be part of what we ask for in this, is sort of enforcement. I do agree, understanding how we can better reduce contamination. The fact that we just have one big bin and we put our paper with all of our cans and bottles makes it really hard. So we have a whole, our countertop over the week gets full because we're trying to dry everything out so that we don't contaminate any of the paper in our recycle bin with all of our bottles. So, some places don't require things to be empty, clean, and dry because they separate the paper and cardboard from the other stuff. So those types of trade-offs, I think, are really important. You might get better recycling if people don't have to wash their garbage, right? I mean, my husband's like, why are you putting that can in the dishwasher? I'm like, because it has to be empty, clean, and dry. So we have to put it in the dishwasher. So I do think that, again, it is not just a one-size-fits-all. There are small trade-offs that will ultimately lead to the best results, right? The best diversion rates are going to give us lower prices over the long haul. And then my other one was to talk about the unknown. Again, another great point that was brought up. I think one of the elements that we should be rating this on is sort of reliability of the hauler, right? And what do they come with good recommendations? And so really looking at that, so that we aren't just picking the person with the lowest rates, but they've never done this before. So I think that's partially how we do that, is that it isn't just the person with the lowest rates or this, but it's do they have a track record? And I think that's important in this, because this isn't something that just anybody can do and do well. It's a big deal. And I think having some of those other things, like what happens in an emergency, what kinds of provisions can they provide? If we have another windstorm and we have lots of trees and stuff, are there things built into that? Even if there's potentially a fee to the city, just having that option, because that fee to the city might still be less than if we have to try to figure out how to deal with it completely on our own. So there's a lot. I can see why this is such a big job, because it's not a little thing. There's a lot of trash to talk about. So those were just my other things. I know this is a huge list, but I do think those diversion rates are critical, not just to meet our sustainability goals, but it's going to cost us a fortune if we don't get better at that. Thanks.
Councilmember Train.
Thank you, Mayor. So, first question, which staffs were around for the last negotiation when we combined Klahani? You were here, Jen, and then Evan, were you around for that too, Mr. Fisher? Yeah.
I was, but not a part of the process.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Oh, I was around for that, but I was strictly in the DCD realm at that time and not helping Public Works with the solid waste process.
But you're helping this time, correct?
Yep, in a supporting role, correct.
So during the negotiation with Republic, did we feel that the city was treated fairly? I think so, but I'm just wondering if staff feels the same way I felt about the negotiations with Republic in regards to the Klahani combination. Okay, I thought we all felt the same. So when analyzing the data, and kind of, Evan, I'm kind of leaning towards your expertise, but when analyzing the data for the services, has Sammamish residents paid a fair market rate for the last 10 years of our garbage or our trash services, recycle, the whole combo, right?
I like that you have faith in me, Councilmember Tree, but I think Jeanette is a better person to answer that one.
Sorry, Jeanette. I like Evan. I like you too. So, have we gotten a fair price for 10 years from these guys? Right, it's a 10-year contract that we've entered into.
Yes, sorry, I'm Jen, so I was a little thrown there for a second. But,
sorry, Jen.
No, all good. So I have not been around for the entirety of the contract. I'll start there. I think that we were treated fairly during the negotiations with Klahani. I cannot speak to the fairness or the equity of our current rates because I am not deeply knowledgeable about the rates of our surrounding jurisdictions, of what they've gone through in terms of amendments, RFPs, negotiations for their contracts as well. Every single contract for collection, it is different. They've got different terms, which lead to different rates. So I do not think I can answer the fairness question right now if you're looking at a broader scope, but I think Republic Services has done a very good job by our residents to date.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hear a lot of complaints from our residents about the services that they are receiving from Republic. So, I mean, I know we've had some issues over the 6 years I've been on the council, but those all have been fixed when brought to their attention that we need these things taken care of, and they've stepped up and taken care of those challenges. So the way I look at it is, okay, I think you all know where I stand, so I'd like to renegotiate with them. Thank you.
I don't see any other lights on, so if no other council member has a question, I will ask my next one here. Mike, I want to jump up the RFP process again. So my experience with RFPs, and this might help you understand why I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this, is I did marketing, and so submitted RFPs for websites, marketing proposals, video, that sort of thing. And often the government organization would have some idea. Directionally, they want to go that way, but otherwise, no idea what the cost is, what they really, truly wanted. And so what they were relying on was the different proposals that came forward, the ideas they liked the best, the other scoring matrices they had, and then, the cost and ideas. It sounds like, though, we're providing a baked contract to the haulers and they're going to bid on that, or because that's what I'm hearing, is that you're going to have a contract that's almost fully baked and then all the haulers are going to bid on that nearly fully baked contract. I'm seeing a head nod from our deputy city manager.
Sorry, Rachel Bianchi for the record, Deputy City Manager. It is very different. A hauling contract is a very different RFP process than the traditional RFP process that you just outlined, right? Okay. Because it really is that. We are saying, here is the contract we would like, right? There are often alternatives to that. So we have a base contract and then alternatives to say, we want blue trucks, right? Or we want, things like that. And then they can bid accordingly, but everybody gets the same base contract that they're expected to do, and then they bid on it. And that's the big time difference, is because on the renegotiation side, we're going through line by line and saying, this is what we want, what do you think? And then they're coming back and saying, well, that's not what we're thinking. And then we're going back line by line versus us saying, here you go, you guys go do your work and come back.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. The contracts I bid on were in a different universe of cost than what this is. So completely different, but that just so you understand my frame of reference there. So then my next question is, how are we ensuring that we're getting all the cool, innovative ideas from the haulers ahead of time so that we can consider them as part of the RFP process? Because I'm sure some of them are doing some neat things that we would want to have. How do we know about them in advance of the RFP so that we can ask for them?
I think it's a great question. And I think that from the staff perspective, this is where the partnership with our consultant comes into play because, Jeanette is on top of some of these innovative new features, right? That me as staff, I'm probably not aware of, but she is enmeshed in the solid waste world, and is connected with all of the haulers in our area. So to answer your question, I would, throughout the process, probably look to Jeanette and her knowledge base of what is new and innovative from the haulers.
If I can tag on to that, one of the features that we put in the RFP document to haulers is to ask them if they have any other innovative things that we did not include that they would like us to consider and a rate for that. And so that would not be considered in the scoring rubric as far as the proposals are concerned. But once we select our highest rated proponent, our highest rated hauler that we want to finalize the contract with, we can look at different features like that. And I think I misspoke, so I would like to clarify. When we go through the RFP process, there's a certain proportion that we look at as far as rates. Generally, cities pick about 60% of the weighting is how much the haulers are proposing for costs. And typically it's 40% on things like customer service, reliability, sustainability, operations. And innovations can be as part of that 40%. The cost for any innovative features are not considered when we're doing our initial scoring. So that's what I want to clarify. But we do have an opportunity where we ask them, what are we missing? What else would you like to propose that we can discuss?
Okay, but something that really knocks it out of the park for them would end up not being scored, it sounds like.
It would be scored on the qualitative side. So we could say, hey, this hauler is very innovative, but it wouldn't affect the pricing score because we really want apples to apples when we compare all the haulers on the pricing.
Okay, and Jeanette, have you worked with contracts with all the haulers in the area that will likely be bidding in Sammamish within the last, I don't know, however many years? So you're up to date. You feel confident that you're up to date on everything that they have to offer?
Yes, Mayor. I work with them on contract management as well as procurements around the area.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And Councilmember Stewart.
I would like to make a motion. So I move I move that staff, that we recommend staff move forward. I motion to move forward with the staff recommendation of a competitive request for proposals to procure a new solid waste collection contract.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, just that I do think we'll still get the best deal out of Republic that they can offer. If they have cool things that they know specific for Sammamish, they can put it in that qualitative section, and that could put them over the edge. So I think that this will most likely lead to the best outcome for our residents and potentially for sustainability as well. Thanks.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you very much for all your time and effort for that presentation and chatting with all of us.
Thank you for talking trash with us.
All right. right, up now we have council reports. I'll start on the left side with Councilmember Treen.
So I did have a fun night at Forterra's fundraiser on Wednesday night. So really enjoyed that and got to meet some really cool people about some of our wetlands, and Hazel Wolf Wetland was definitely popular conversation, as well as the Beaver Lake Preserve. So that was kind of fun. Got a drinking with the fire hose with Eastside Fire and Rescue with a couple other council members. And so we're looking at some really interesting financing and different things, decisions that are coming up for that. So that's that. And then council member Roisin O'Farrell and I will be at YR8 on Thursday.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
I do not have one for this week.
Councilmember Boyer. On my side, I went to the city of Redmond. Mayor Bernie hosted East Side mayors along with some of our Sound Transit representatives for the East Side to talk about their retreat that was today. And I basically reiterated the letter we had already signed about the importance of the Issaquah light rail station. And then had the EFR Board of Directors and an Eastside Transportation Partnership meeting this last Friday. And upcoming this next week, on Friday, I'll be at Pine Lake Starbucks working all day and meeting with residents. I've got right now 7 meetings scheduled, and anyone can stop by and chat with me if they'd like.
Yeah. Yes, again, helped to put together the presentations for the Eastside Fire and Rescue. Happy to sit down with each council member just to provide that, not to violate any rules, but I think there's a lot of education in terms of what's going on with the budget process that we'll be going through this year, and then separately what we're looking at in terms of long-term potential changes to how we fund and govern the organization. So happy to start that with you guys, making sure that you can provide input to those of us who represent Sammamish on the board as we move forward. This week I have the Regional Transit Committee and the GMPB. On GMPB we will be reviewing and potentially approving several comp plans that have not yet been approved. We'll be talking a little bit about regional centers as we've been looking at criteria for reviewing and potentially modifying some of those criteria. Again, those were established a long time ago, and we're looking at, how should we, if at all, modify what that criteria is. There are a couple of regional centers that are being recommended that they switch from, kind of regional to, there's different classifications of the centers. So we're reviewing those types of things. And then we're going to talk about, there was one other, just a discussion item. And then I'm not sure that there's anything that we'll be voting on for the Regional Transit Committee. So, but I will forward you guys all of that information.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow I have a meeting with RY8 Grant Review Committee. We're looking at a couple of projects in the region for salmon recovery. So I'm doing that tomorrow. And then, as Councilmember Treen said, RY8 Salmon Recovery Council meeting on Thursday. And then just a reminder to Council this day next week, the 24th of March, where we don't have a meeting. Scout Pack 571 shall be here at 6:30, and there are a bunch of 4th graders. All are welcome to attend, and so they're just here to learn about local government. So don't leave me by myself.
Thank you. And Mr. City Manager. I'm sorry. Let me cut you off. Deputy Mayor. I forgot about the person online.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Roisin. I'm planning to come to the Boy Scout or the Scouts group. I just have one thing I wanted to bring up. I sent a really late last minute email, but the Sound Cities Association is taking a position on the King County Transit District tax. They are planning to put on the ballot this year a tenth of a penny tax on sales tax to fund road improvements in King County. And the SCA did not take a position either for or against. They basically highlighted some of the issues that people have. Some of the cities support, some don't. And on our own council, I received feedback from a couple of you, and clearly we are not in alignment on whether or not to support the tax. So what I wanted to ask of you tonight is whether you would like us to take a position to basically just endorse the SCA position, which is not to support or oppose the tax, but to highlight that if the tax passes, they are asking that 25% of the funds raised in a city be routed back to that city. And then also, if it passes, that cities should be involved in the decision-making process about how it's allocated to projects. So I don't know if any of you if it's okay with me if we don't do anything. That's the other option. But I think it would be nice to support the Sound Cities Association in their work on behalf of all the cities regarding this tax.
I got one response in the negative, and I haven't seen any other direction from.
No, I agree.
Agree not to respond at all?
Correct.
Or to submit a letter?
SCA's.
To
Okay.
support SCA's position.
Okay.
I just want to point out, though, that like Seattle's going to get the bulk of that. So I know we'll get a tiny, tiny bit, but it's not going to go, I think, where it's needed most, right? So that's my concern, right? It's not that it's not going to the smaller cities. It's that a huge chunk of that money is going to end up going into Seattle when it's, I think, King County that really needs it most. So that's why I have concerns about that.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's not in alignment. We're not all in alignment. So if we want to move forward with a position, I think we need to take a formal vote on it. If anyone feels strongly enough to do that. Otherwise, we'll just let it sit and not take, in our city then would not take a position one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm okay either way. I wouldn't push for you to to send a letter, just offering the opportunity to be heard.
Okay. Then we will move on to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So as everyone knows, we had a bit of a storm week last week, and I want a huge shout out to all the crews that were out working. We had rain, wind, snow, and then more rain. It was very heavy snow, and so we had, I'm looking at my notes here, we had over 35 down tree requests. We had over 65 mice and mammoth requests. The crews worked Friday doing snow plowing and then Saturday doing cleanup. And we also had a significant landslide that the crews were out taking care of over the weekend, including removing 50 yards of soil and debris from the right-of-way to be able to both keep the right-of-way open and to make sure that we are not having sediment impede the storm drains and to go into the lake. So just really want to shout out all the teams for getting us back on track. A couple other updates coming on Friday. I'd like to invite everyone to join that can. The senior programming, it's their 3rd anniversary at the Beaver Lake Lodge, and so they're doing a little anniversary event, 11:30 a.m. for those that would like to participate. We did notice it just in case everyone wants to attend. You are all more than welcome. Just a quick reminder, there are 5 Tuesdays in March, actually. It's our only time of the year, so we won't be back here for 2 weeks. And then a quick shout out for, since we were talking trash and recycling earlier, the reminder of the April 4th recycling event at Eastside Catholic on Saturday, April 4th from 9:30 to 3. With that, Mayor, back to you.
Thank you very much. And I think the last thing that we need to...
One other thing.
Yes.
Because we won't be back, don't forget that the Cross Lake connection opens on the 28th, right? Yeah, so very exciting. I'll be riding a train that day for darn sure. There are going to be a lot of festivities, by the way. So if you do want to go, there's going to be events at, I think, most of the stops on the east side, but definitely at the Transit Center in Redmond over by Microsoft. It's going to be a huge event at Mercer Island, and then another one in Seattle. Just know that the event in Mercer Island is going to be on the top floor of the parking garage. garage, so don't plan to park there. I think there will be buses, but if you go online, you can find out lots of information, but it's really cool. I've been to all the openings so far on the east side, and it's kind of a lot of fun. I don't know, I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to trains. It's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of events. You can learn a lot. There's a lot of community groups that come out. There's a coffee shop at the one in Redmond. So there's lots of fun things, and it is the first time that a train will be traversing over a floating bridge. So it is history making. So for no other reason, come out, ride a train, go over the bridge, have a good time. Thanks.
And with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved and
Second.
seconded. Discussion. None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.